Hello, this is Kelvin Simmons, uh, and I'm hoping you have having a good day this Sunday. The topic today is entitled Trump and America's Criminal Justice System. You might say, well, Simmons, I thought you were merely going to focus on topics that has to do with probation and parole. Well, probation and parole is part of the criminal justice system, and the criminal justice system is one that is designed and based on justice for all Americans, whether you be rich or poor. I'm a retired probation and parole officer, state of Florida, but I'm also a retired United States Navy Chief Petty Officer. And I'll state here that I never thought I'd live to see the day when the President of the United States of America was a draft dodger. Think about it, a draft dodger, commander in chief, somebody who's supposed to tell the military what to do and supposed to be the leader of the free world and supposed to be in that and is in that position and supposed to look out for the good of the Americans and every other person in the world who's seeking to live in peace. So with that in mind, this video concerning the criminal justice system may not come across with all of my normal grins and facial expressions. I'll try to keep them up. But Trump's Supreme Court gave him what I consider unnecessary immunity. You might say, well, what does that have to do with the criminal justice system? Well, when you give him, or when they gave him that extra immunity, that added to his idea that he was above the law. In other words, he's placed above our Constitution, which takes us back over the pond over there, back over the Atlantic Ocean to, that part of the world where the forefathers of this country, America, came to get away from tyranny, from those kings, from that one man rule. That was supposedly the purpose. And after so many hundred years, it appears that we have made our way back to that just by people believing what one person says. Now, granted, there are those who say, from the religious standpoint, the Lord put him here, maybe to test us. But then if you put religion in the conversation, then someone gets to say, well, maybe the devil put him here. So you have to make your choice. Remember, this is just my opinion, and I'll try to keep it as objective as possible. So he has this extra immunity, which adds to his thoughts of being a dictator. He's almost in a position of being a dictator. I mean, to a point where I dictated a video. When I say dictated, I sat in front of the computer and I was recorded. And I was on that side of the fence where I was sort of afraid to say what I wanted to say. Now, based on that, I'm thinking, so I fit in that category where those people fitted with someone like Adolf Hitler, the Putins of the world, where you are afraid to speak your piece. And that's where I found myself, in a position where I didn't want to speak my piece, so I mellowed it out. But I have not published that video at this time. But back to the criminal justice system. MAGA. MAGA, Make America Great Again, to me, it's not particularly good for the criminal justice system. To me, it's for a particular faction or group of people in America. And when you think about it, when you consider that no one is above the law in this country, at least that's the way our Constitution has it set up. No one is supposed to be above the law. But it appears that we have a person in Donald J. Trump who thinks he's above the law, and he acts like he's above the law, and he does things that pushes our Constitution to the point where he's making himself the person in charge. And you might say, well, what does this have to do with the criminal justice system? Well, if you're in a position of the president of the United States of America and you control the police, you control the politicians, and you control judges, remember, it is Trump's Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court justices are listening to this, which I doubt, then some of you all fit this category, that you belong to Donald J. Trump. You are MAGA, even though you are on the Supreme Court. So with that in mind, he's allowed or able to circumvent the rules that regular people like us are required to play by within the criminal justice system. Anytime things do not go his way, what does he do? I'll say he runs, even though I doubt if he can run, but he figuratively runs to his buddies over at the U.S. Supreme Court and get them involved in things that he doesn't necessarily need certiorari in order to have his view heard. They will hear his view because he sits in the position of the president, even though he appears to be a dictator wannabe. So how does this affect the criminal justice system? Well, the police are involved in that criminal justice system. It's part of the criminal justice system. If you are the president and you decide that the police agencies are not doing what you want them to do, then you can try to control the purse string. You can control the federal dollars that the police agencies receive. And for those who are not familiar with how the system works, a significant amount of your local police budget comes from federal law enforcement appropriations, meaning funds. But keep in mind, I'll throw this out again and again, that the criminal justice system is apparently different for the rich and the poor. If you're rich, think about it. You can afford the best, the top attorneys or lawyers. Even if you're guilty, you can even go into an act, commit a particular violation of the law, knowing that when you get caught, you can afford the top lawyers and that you will probably, as a corporation, you're representing your company, your corporation, you'll get hit with a big fine or a heavy fine. But you and your lawyers and your accountants have already determined that the profits outweigh the fines that you may end up having to pay. So that's an advantage of being rich. If you're poor, you show up in court, hey, the police hem you up. They charge you with something that you might have done. You may be guilty, but you end up in court without an attorney. And the court will probably appoint one to you because that's the way our system works. If you can't afford an attorney, then the court will appoint one. But beware, that free attorney is not free. It is normally placed as a lien against your estate. So I say again, Trump owns your politicians or our politicians. He owns judges, and that includes Supreme Court judges. And he owns the police vicariously by way of budgeting or being able to hold on to the funds. One last note on politicians. If you own the Speaker of the House and the House has a majority of individuals that see things your way, then you own the House. Trump owns the House. He owns Mac Johnson. So right there, that's a large, huge impediment to the criminal justice system to operate in a fair and just way or manner in this country. But this one is for Mac Johnson. Be aware, Mac Johnson, that you may be in Trump's back pocket, but you better watch out that he doesn't sit down, because you will be squished or smooshed, and he'll just have those clothes burned or thrown away, put in the trash, and he'll find another Mac Johnson. And that's even though Mac Johnson is supposed to be a constitutional law attorney, meaning he knows that Trump is working towards violating the Constitution of the United States of America. He's well aware of the things that Trump is doing, that they are not in the interest of the people in this country. And I'll just throw this out there. During the time that I taught criminal justice courses, one of the courses I taught was constitutional law. And I can say this fella that's sitting up there in the White House, actually, he's probably at Mar-a-Lago playing golf right now. That person would be in violation of our Constitution. And he continues that. So I'll ask you to give me a like, and I'm going to keep this video on the short side. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. I'll get back to my regular probation and parole videos. But just a comment on Trump. He's sitting in a position where he can do good for America and the world. But for his selfish reasons, he doesn't do it. He doesn't do what he can do. I mean, how many times has there been a president sitting in the White House, a president of the United States of America, who uses food benefits and insurance benefits against the people who voted for him? Yes, you all voted for him without understanding that Affordable Care Act is Obamacare. Yes. So you voted against a benefit for yourself. This is not the kind of president that I think the United States of America is accustomed to. And one final note, to all the people that are serving time in prison, if you've been convicted as a felony or for a felony offense, you are in a interesting position now. We have a person who has been convicted of felony sitting in the White House now. So now you can be a convicted felon and not disqualified from being the president of the United States of America. How about that? That's a good note. You can now be the president of the United States of America and have a felony conviction. So one last note, one last comment on our sitting president. As a probation and parole officer, I worked with sex offenders for more than 2 decades. One of the things I learned is that sex offenders deny. Sex offenders play the victim. How about that? They play the victim. Huh. And one of the other things, they blame the person who is the victim. They project. That's for those college educated people. Project. They throw off on other people. It's the other people's. They did it. They caused it. They're the problem. So I'm going to end by saying, or repeating myself, please like. I mean, if you don't like, just don't do anything. I'll try not to do another video similar to this, but we need to get back to the criminal justice system working the way it's supposed to work in America. That's where we need to get back to. And I'm going to refer you to my book. I actually do not have it in my hand today. It's not sitting next to me. The title of it is Confessions and Life of a Black Probation and Parole Officer. And I'll reference the last chapter, chapter 5. It includes comments on our sitting president and how his behavior relates to the behavior of Adolf Hitler. So thank you. Subscribe, please. Thank you. Bye.